Hello, Nathan here with Modern Deployment IT blog, where my goal is to provide reliable IT guides and experiences from the field. Today, I wanted to talk to you about SCCM 1908 Technical Preview New Features Review. So, let's get started. So, new features, what can we expect? Let's do that. So, I'm not going to go into every feature of the technical preview. I wanted to highlight a few of the main ones that stood out to me. The first one is task sequence performance improvements for power plans. So within the task sequence, there's a new tab to basically enable power plan execution during the execution of the task sequence. There's also the ability to use CMPivot standalone. So there's a standalone MSI installer that you can use separately from the console. For those business folks or other persons in the help desk or other departments that you're working with that need to run CMPivot queries, they don't have the console or the infrastructure, they can simply run CMPivot standalone to build queries that way. There's additional software update filters for automatic deployment rules. There's also the ability to use delivery optimization for all Windows updates. They've also introduced phased deployment templates for software updates. So phased deployments, if you're familiar with that with task sequences, gives you the ability to deploy a certain percentage of a task sequence before it moves to another task sequence, or before it's considered successful. Improvements to console connection nodes. Also the ability to copy and paste task sequence conditions. There's also the ability improvements to task sequence editor search. Likewise, there's improvements to operating system deployment, the ability to set the default keyboard layout in Windows PE, the ability to output a run command line step as a task sequence variable, and finally, the ability to clear up duplicate hardware IDs using PowerShell commandlets in the Config Manager console. Okay, so let's look at this environment. So first and foremost, let me go back to this. I forgot to highlight this. If you're not familiar with Technical Preview, so whether it's Technical Preview 1908 or other versions, there's in-console update like other releases. The difference with Technical Preview, if you're not familiar, SCCM Technical Preview is active for 90 days. That means you only have the ability to use it for 90 days for any one particular release. You have to download baseline versions from the Technical Evaluation Center. Here's a link to that, and I won't go through all the details on how to do that, but basically you download the SCCM Technical Preview. You'll need server operating system preview as well, or eval, and you'll need SQL Server eval as well. Excuse me. The Technical Preview environment supports up to 10 clients, whether that's Windows 10 clients or Windows 7 clients. It only supports the following versions of SQL Server as well: SQL 2017, 2016, 14, and 12. In my environment, I think I'm using SQL 2017. Okay, so let's look at a demo of this in our lab environment. So I have my SCCM Technical Preview Hyper-V machine here. I have several Hyper-V machines. So on Windows 10, you have Hyper-V features that you can install, and that's what I use. I've installed this on Server 2019. If you are not familiar with how to set up Server 2019, I'll reference my blog post in the description of this YouTube video. And here, the best way to learn how to do something, if you're not familiar with how to do it, I know there's others in the industry. There's hydration kits from some folks. There's other scripts that you can run that will automatically install Active Directory in these roles, and that's fine if you want to use that. But if you'd like to do it from scratch and get a better idea of the inner workings, I have that step-by-step guide here with all the details on how to install it and what's required to install a domain controller, install DNS and DHCP and what have you. Okay, so we want to launch our SCCM console. Now I've already upgraded to 1908. My previous version was 1907, I believe. So go into the administration node, click on updates and servicing, and make sure you're running 1908 Technical Preview. Also, if you have clients in your environment, make sure that they are on the same level as shown here. Now, either you, the way you can check that is if you go into site configuration, click on the site, click on hierarchy settings. I would check this option here to automatically upgrade. So upgrade any clients in the hierarchy using production client. So I have mine set to 3 days. So you could forcefully make sure that the clients are updated to the latest version once you do an in-console update. If there's any pre-release features that haven't been enabled already, you can go to the features node. You can right-click on that particular feature and click turn on. So those are the requirements for that, for as far as setting up Technical Preview. Okay, so the first feature we want to look at is task sequence performance improvements within a task sequence. So now there's this option. If you go to task sequences node, expand operating systems, right click on your task sequence, go to properties, and now there's this performance tab. So if we zoom in on that, clicking the wrong button. If we zoom in on that, you can see all you have to do is check this box here on the properties of the task sequence, and now you'll have the ability when it executes the task sequence, it'll be reverted upon completion, but while it's running the task sequence and any subsequent reboots, it will set the performance, the power plant to high, essentially. Okay, so that's the first feature. So that's a really good feature. The other one is the CMPivot standalone. So in your site server, if you navigate to your program files on your C drive, Microsoft Configuration Manager, go into Tools, CMPivot, there's this MSI installer. So what I did was I just simply copied that MSI installer off. So you basically can install this on other machines. You run the CMPivot standalone, and now you have the ability to create queries. Now, to demonstrate that, what I did was I installed that on my local site server here. So click on CMPivot. Every time you launch CMPivot, it gives you the ability to pick the site server, or you can type in the server name for the site server for that particular environment. And now you have the ability to run queries directly, using CMPivot here. Now, one thing I'm not so normally when you are traditionally if you look at your various collections, say for example all systems, you have this start CMPivot. That's running it for all systems. So it looks like this feature is running it locally on the machine. So when you install this MSI, it's not querying up against a particular collection. It seems like it's running it locally on the machine. So I guess it's connecting to the config manager database to get the functionality of what you can run in terms of the queries, right? Okay, so you don't have the ability to connect to a particular collection. So this is like a standalone. You're not targeting collection. So being able to query TPM status, that's pretty cool. Not used that before. So that's CMPivot standalone. Hopefully that feature is there in SCCM, in later versions of SCCM. Okay, the other one I wanted to highlight was improvements to console connection node. So what they did was under administration, when you expand security, there's now this console connection that's been here. They've changed it to just say the last console heartbeat. So the last time that the person that connects to the console, from a heartbeat perspective. So that changed. I think it used to be, they give an explanation here. So in console connections node, the last console heartbeat column has replaced last connected time. So the last heartbeat column gives administrators more information for determining which console connections are currently active. So that's a little bit more descriptive than the last time somebody connected. Okay, copy and paste, that's the next feature. Copy and paste task sequence conditions. So if we go back to our software library node, we edit an existing task sequence. You now have the ability on the options of a task sequence. Before, you didn't have the ability. These options right here don't exist currently in 1806 current branch. That's a new feature. Okay, being able to copy and paste, that's pretty cool. So I guess what that means is you highlight an option. So let's say we wanted to copy this. We do copy, and let's pick one of these here that doesn't have a condition. We can just right click and do paste, or we can add and let's say we had an if statement in here already. We could have right clicked and do paste after. Or if you let's say you didn't have this, say it was like that. Okay. Pretty cool. Let's say we wanted to copy this step for CFI equals true. This is always a pain. A lot of times when I've used this with customers, I've had to basically have to click on this. Oh, that wasn't good. That crashed. So that's what happens with Technical Preview, huh? It crashes sometimes. Let's try to kill back in. The beauties of Technical Preview evaluation software, right? Okay, so go back into our task sequence. So what I was getting at, so let's say I wanted to copy this entire node, entire condition rather. Let's create a new group down called del CC TK 4.2. Being able to paste the entire, very cool. So not having that ability now will be sorely missed. This will be nice when it's released. Okay, the ability to move up and down is also very cool. Again, like I was trying to explain earlier, you normally would have to click on this and copy and paste this into Notepad or something, and then come back in here, create a new step. So this is a real big deal improvement for me and working with my customers on copying and pasting task sequence conditions. The other option that's in here that we'll go to next is improvements in task sequence editor. So you have the ability to search for, doesn't like that I didn't save it, so let's close that and go back in. Let's look at the description on what they talk about for search. This release includes the following improvements from 1907. The list of search options is now named scope. Use it to choose the area of the task sequence editor to search. You can now use Alt plus down arrow to open the list. Instead of scoping the search to the group, you can now search on group name or group description. Okay. So you have the ability to search for a particular type of search criteria, essentially. Let's do CFI. Looking for scope is CFI, and it highlights it in yellow, so that's very good. That's a cool new feature. The next one is improvements to OS deployment. So if you look at the first one is being able to set the keyboard layout in Windows PE. So if you go to the properties of your boot image, and on the customization tab, you now have the ability here to set the default layout. Now it sounds like you have two options. You have whatever option you pick here plus English is what I understand from the Microsoft description. If we look at the Microsoft details here, based on the user feedback, configure default layout for the boot image on the customization tab. If you select a language other than English, Config Manager still includes English in the available input. On the device, the initial keyboard layout is the selected locale, but the user can switch switch the device rather to English if needed. So it looks like you just have two options. So you have the option to come in here and choose, let's say, French Zimbabwe. So it would default to switch to Zimbabwe, but it would also give you the ability to pick English. So this doesn't allow multiple keyboard selection options. So if you had say you had 10 languages, you wouldn't be able to select all 10 languages. So that's a bummer. But this is a nicety. So sometimes you might have 90% of your people are using English and 10% are using some other language. So if that's the case, then you have the option to choose two different keyboard layout types. The next feature is the run command line. So if we within a task sequence, so the ability to output the run command line to a task sequence variable. What does that look like? So we have a step. Okay, so this is the command line that's going to run CMD for CCTK kit for configuring the BIOS. So here now you have the ability to output this as a variable. So keyboard on, that would be our variable. Now you don't set the variable, so you don't do this. That's not correct. You just set whatever the name is, and it variabilizes the output of this command line. Okay, so that's what that looks like. The next OS improvement, let's see, the final one rather, is PowerShell commandlets. So being able to do removal of duplicate hardware IDs or new hardware IDs from a PowerShell commandlet. So let's copy paste one of these to show as an example. Check. Okay. Yeah, so you could build a PowerShell script, or you could run the command to script the duplicate hardware ID issue that sometimes I haven't seen that too much with customers, but it is an issue sometimes. So I think we covered everything. We covered improvements with the power plan, improvements with the console connection, copy and paste task sequencing conditions, improvements to the search editor, improvements to the Windows PE default layout. It's like we covered everything. So that concludes our demonstration for today of the SCCM 1908 Technical Preview features. I'll reference these links in the YouTube video. Please like and subscribe my YouTube channel. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.